Hi, today on the Student Slant, we talked to Kaylin Hines, development and construction reporter for The Lantern.
Okay, I was sitting on the newsroom couch doing copy edit, and my editor, Summer, kind of like yelled out that the Washington Post had picked up my cheating story. So it was probably the most, I was really excited because a lot of the news stations hadn't credited the Lantern in it, but the Washington Post actually linked the article, which was just really awesome because it kind of was saying, like, this article is good enough for us to link. My name is Kaylin Hines, and I am a Lantern reporter.
My name's Zach Varda.
I'm Jake Ray, and this is the Student Slant. So, tell us a little bit about the article that was picked up by National News.
So it is an article about a group of business students in the Fisher College of Business. And what they did was for online quizzes, they would share answers to the quizzes in this app called GroupMe. So it's basically just like, imagine just like a big text message in one. And so they got caught. They had to talk to student misconduct, and most of them got in trouble for it. So I think it was about 83 students.
So I'm interested because these aren't things that get made public, because of laws and privacy laws. How did you, without like divulging names, obviously, go about finding out that this was even happening or getting the details to this?
Actually, last semester when it first happened, my roommate, who's in the business school, wasn't in the class or anything, just heard rumors about students who were going to get like these big suspensions for cheating. And I just kind of was like, oh, wow, that's crazy. And then went on with my life. And then Summer actually gave me the story article because, or like heard about it and asked me about it. And I was like, yeah, I'd heard about it. So she assigned it to me. And then I just kind of dug a little deeper. And I happen to know some people who were in it, but never really used any of that information for it, just for like my own. They didn't want their names in the article, but it gave me a lot of leads to ask the administration about.
So what was it like when I know a few national news outlets like started contacting you, asking you questions? What was that experience like? I guess was it intimidating, exciting? What kind of questions were they asking you? And I don't know how does that whole process kind of happen?
So when the article first came out, the only news station to actually reach out to me was ABC6 in Columbus. She asked me for the student names of the people who were in it, and of course I did not give them to her. I never watched their segment on it, but apparently they like showed the Lantern, the print edition of the Lantern, and just kind of they credited us for that, which was really cool. But other than what was in the article, I couldn't, give her. I wasn't like I couldn't give her any more information. But as far as when big outlets started getting it, so Good Morning America wrote about it, or they did a segment on it actually, which was interesting. They didn't credit the Lantern or anything, but that's kind of when I was like, wow, like Good Morning America, like that's a household name. And then I saw Fox News write about it, which was kind of humorous because they wrote their headline was like a cheating scandal rocks, or OSU rocked by cheating scandal. So it's just kind of funny to see like people who don't really know exactly what happened put their own little spin on it, which like if you wanted the full story and like probably definitely the most informative story, you'd read the Lantern. So that was interesting, and so definitely the Washington Post linking was like the most incredible and important, I think, for me.
Yeah, and I noticed that a lot of these sources picking it up, they kind of had certain thoughts about what was going on before they made contact with you. So, what was it like, I guess, trying to dispel some of the misinformation they had, such as like how many people were cheating, or what the extent was it? Because you mentioned Fox News said Ohio State was like rocked by it, and I also saw some other news outlets were kind of unaware of what GroupMe was, and were reporting as it being like a brand new app that is just for cheating, when really it's just a messaging app.
Right. Yeah, well, actually, the Good Morning America segment had like I don't even remember what her title was, but it she came in and like talked about like GroupMe as if it was like this like groundbreaking app when really like I have a GroupMe for my like apartment complex where we're like, does anyone have an egg? We're trying to like bake a cake. Like it's not anything like despicable. So that was kind of funny, but I like get where they're coming from. Where like they have to appeal to like their audience and stuff. As far as misinformation, the articles I read weren't necessary. They weren't. I didn't see anything that was like a wrong fact. Like that, they had the numbers right and stuff. It's more so just like the way they present it, I guess. But other than that, I mean, they kind of just regurgitated what we had. So
So moving, I guess, more into your day to day. Jake and I obviously, working on the same desk as you as beat reporters with different beats. You seem to interact with administration, whether it's the Ohio State administration or construction administration, more than most of us. I think I've only talked to like official spokespeople like once this whole semester. I'm just kind of wondering what that's like to have to, go through official channels and cultivate relationships that way.
they do get me all the information and sources I need. Like they're the ones I go to. They're very helpful in that sense. Obviously, we're both like they have their job to do and I have my job to do, and they're like spokespeople, like PR. So at the end of the day, they give me like statements. So I guess specifically for the group me, I reached out and it was just very difficult to get information for this article because of laws. Not because they like refused to like give me information, but because of laws. So FERPA laws protect students' identities and their like academic records and whatnot. So I hit a lot of like roadblocks with it. So I tried to like reach out to the Code of Academic Misconduct or the Committee on Academic Misconduct, who sent me like back to like Ben Johnson, who's an OSU spokesperson, and I kept trying to like send questions that wouldn't like reveal the identities of students, but could give me at least more to say. So what I ended up having to do, so print night when my article was going to come out, talk to him off the record. So we talked or on background sometimes, just to like get my facts straight and the story straight. And I wanted to know how many like were like juniors and seniors, and if he could confirm like which class it was. And he ended up like getting back to me and just saying like I can't do that. So it was frustrating, but I knew enough people who were in the class to be like, yes, this was the class. Yes, this was the teacher. I didn't say the teacher, but I got the class in there. I mean, it's definitely frustrating at some points. And sometimes, like, I wrote the Dracket Tower story, which is about Legionnaire's disease. I remember we didn't hear back from Dave Isaacs until like 5 or 6 on print night, which 5 o'clock is deadline for stories. So as I was typing the story, everyone was on Google Docs editing the story. So it was one of those things like we were like calling him, and I had help from Owen, my other editor, and he was calling him, and finally we got a statement. So a lot of times my information comes in the form of a statement, but they most of the time they give me information I need. So it's helpful, but it goes both ways.
Yeah, so for me, thinking about that, Zach and I, when we go to like a source, we can just go directly to the source. There's no gatekeeper. So what is it like trying to work on a deadline and try to get all your information down when you're having 3 or 4 steps to go to get the information you need? Or when you want to be able to ask a question specifically to someone, but sometimes you have to go through a spokesperson because the person you would really need to talk to isn't available.
Yeah, I mean, it's helpful though because they can like point you to the right people when you need them. Because sometimes I have an article and I don't even know who I need to talk to yet, and they'll help me find that person. Other times, I mean, they get back really fast. If you set them a deadline, like they'll get back to you pretty quickly. I mean, as I just said, sometimes that's not always the case. They do know a lot, so like a lot of times they can just talk to me, which is really nice because I know them and I can just call them. I talk to Dan Hedman a lot, who actually was really helpful with sources for my last few articles. But yeah, I mean, I tried to do an article for something with the Multicultural Center, and she was like, "You need to email Ben Johnson before I can talk to you, and just kind of let him know what the questions are." So that's a little frustrating, but adamant about getting the information. Like most of the time, you'll get it.
Does that ever add stress when writing, knowing that you need information and or you have to write from a read over and edited quote or statement that you know may not be exactly what the university wants to say, but is what all they can tell you? Not extremely emotional, and we're supposed to have very emotional type quotes to bring in that human element. What is it like trying to still bring in that emotion and write a good article when you're using very bureaucratic type words?
Well, I would say I definitely don't go to OSU spokesman for the emotional quotes. You know, like whatever you're writing the story on, that subject, that's that's where the emotion's going to come from, because it's Ohio State. They're not going to give out an emotional quote per se. I mean, it depends on the topic, you know what I mean? But for like the cheating article, I mean, that's what's expected. That's their job. And so it would have been nice to have a student go on record, give me a quote, give that emotion. But I understand no one wants their name when it's Googled to come up about a cheating article. It's always stressful trying to like get those. I mean, no matter what, I feel like journalism is just like writing articles is a stressful thing to do. But there's a lot of people that are willing to talk to you, so I just normally look at other sources too. So whatever the subject of the topic is, try to get someone who's familiar with that. Use the Ohio State statement as like supplementary to the article.
So I know on my beat, and I think on Jake's too, working with the same sources over and over again is really helpful. This will be like the third podcast I'm going to say. Niraj Antani, state representative who like he works in the Ohio House and passes like meaningful legislature, and I can just text him at this point and like hit him up for whatever I need. So I'm wondering if you have the same experience with like spokespersons, like from the beginning of the semester to the end, does it get easier to work with them? Do they start to trust you with more information? And we talk about that being a two-way relationship when it's good, but when things are bad, maybe not so much. So have you found it, easier to work with them as you have worked with them more and more?
I work with Dan Hedman a lot, and yeah, he's really easy to get a hold of and super helpful. They definitely don't like shut you out, because you're just doing your job, and if you do your reporting right, they're not gonna, shut you out. I've worked with Dave Isaacs just a few times, so yeah, it definitely gets easier. You kind of warm up to ask them questions, because at first, like, it's pretty intimidating coming from a student standpoint, talking to Ohio State representatives. You don't want to say something stupid, and you don't want to like ruin that relationship. So yeah, it gets easier, I'd say. And I work a lot with campus partners, who is kind of like the construction partner of Ohio State, and her name's Erin Prosser, and she is amazing, and we've definitely formed like a pretty good relationship. Like, we've been in meetings together, and I've like talked to her, so she always gets back and helps me with things that might not even be her area to help me with, but she'll always send me on to the right person. So just forming relationships and just being open about what you're doing when you're talking to spokesmen and like spokespeople for Ohio State would definitely like help. So I think it's going well. I hope so.
Is it intimidating at all coming in with them not treating you? Because I know that when I worked with them before a couple times, they don't treat you like a student. They treat you like any other reporter. So is that intimidating at all, knowing that you're working with someone who works with anyone that would want information on Ohio State? It's not just the student communication manager or anything like that. It is the same person that anyone from USA Today would go to, Washington Post would go to. So is that sort of intimidating, knowing that you sort of have an expectation to write a good article that they are typical in seeing their information in?
Yeah, it's definitely intimidating, like I said. But at the same time, it's nice because they treat you like with respect as a reporter. I wouldn't want them treating me just as a student running around doing a project. I like that they take you seriously, and I think it's a good thing that like these people are going to read your articles, because it holds you up to a standard of being like very accurate with your reporting. So it's intimidating, but it's worth it, and like it's just part of the job, I guess. And one of these days, like, you're not going to be a student and you're going to have to talk to people, so it's good practice.
We're coming to the end of our semester in practicum, and we're going to be not on beats anymore. And I'm not sure if you're doing special reporting after this with the freelance writing, but someone else is going to be coming onto this construction beat, having to work with different spokespeople and work with their bureaucracy at Ohio State. What would your advice be to the next practicum writer coming in at your beat and having to kind of fill your shoes?
I think it would be a really good idea to just be familiar with people you're going to have to talk to, introduce yourself. If you can, get an in-person meeting, like with campus partners who I work with so frequently. We met up in the Union. I think it was the first week of classes, and I sat down for an hour, and I met her and another lady, and we just talked for a little bit, and then I went to a meeting actually for Wineland Park, and I had like part of it was like dinner, so I just sat down with Aaron and we just had a conversation about our lives and stuff, and it's nice to have that relationship. As far as with spokes people for OSU, I know Spencer has them come in to the practicum class, and just if you have an opportunity, just introduce yourself. I guess like when you're emailing them, just let them know your deadline. Be very transparent. Don't act like you're trying to like get them, or like be open and friendly and just be yourself and do your homework when you ask questions for sure, so you're not wasting anyone's time because they're busy and we're busy. Speaking of giving advice to students, I actually had a girl reach out from another university and who had read my article, and she asked me for advice on how to not get passed, but work alongside things like FERPA law. And so it was kind of cool to have a student from another school who read my article reach out to me and ask for advice, and just from like a student perspective, give each other advice or like talk about it, because I think that's something that you should do, is to like ask other students who either you like their article or if you have a roadblock, like to always just ask, because I like love giving advice, and I love when I reach out to Summer or Owen and they help me, because it's helpful. So I guess just if you ever need help, just like ask your fellow journalists. Like everyone's super nice, and like I find it to be a very supportive environment.
That was a great discussion. Come back next week for more student perspective on the Student Slant.